For over 200 years, one name has been etched into the very fabric of America's destiny: DuPont. They were innovators, titans of industry, billionaires who shaped a nation. But behind the towering factories and the gleaming corporate logos, they were also the creators of something far more enduring, something that would last forever. The story of DuPont is a story of ambition, of power, and of a legacy built on fire and chemistry. As the sun rises over the Delaware River, a lone factory chimney breathes smoke into the dawn sky, a silent testament to an empire that defined an era, for better and for worse. It all began in 1802, a story born from revolution and exile. Eleuthère Irénée Du Pont, a young French chemist fleeing the turmoil of his homeland, arrived on the shores of a new nation. He brought with him a skill that this young, ambitious America desperately needed: the art of making gunpowder. On the banks of the Brandywine Creek, he built his first black powder mills. In the sweat and soot of those early days, with horse-drawn carts hauling raw materials and men working tirelessly by the water's edge, the foundations of a dynasty were laid. He wasn't just making an explosive, he was fueling the expansion of a country hungry for power. The 19th century was a crucible of conflict, and for DuPont, war was the catalyst for unimaginable growth. Explosions echoed across the Brandywine as the company perfected its craft. When the nation split in two, DuPont's black powder became the lifeblood of the Union Army. They supplied the cannons that roared at Gettysburg and the rifles that decided the fate of the Civil War. From the chaos of conflict, a fortune was forged. By the turn of the 20th century, DuPont was no longer just a gunpowder manufacturer. Their factories had become the roaring, beating heart of American industry, their influence spreading like wildfire across the economic landscape. As America charged into a new century, DuPont transformed from a company into an invisible engine driving the nation forward. The age of gunpowder gave way to an age of chemistry, and DuPont was at the forefront of this new revolution. Their laboratories became crucibles of creation, birthing materials that would redefine modern life. From the nylon stockings that graced a new generation of women to the Teflon that made its way into every kitchen, their innovations were everywhere. They were in the paint on our cars, the film in our cameras, the Freon in our refrigerators. From bullets to beauty, DuPont's chemical empire was building the world of tomorrow, one molecule at a time. Behind every groundbreaking patent and every new factory stood a family unlike any other. The DuPonts were more than just business owners. They were a dynasty, obsessed with control and fiercely protective of their legacy. Their lives were a carefully orchestrated performance of power, played out in lavish estates hidden from public view, at private dinners where political futures were decided, and in boardrooms where the fate of millions was debated. They were a clan bound by blood, wealth, and a shared, unwavering belief in their own destiny. But within the gilded walls of their empire, the very success they cherished was planting the seeds of their own destruction. For a century, their dominance was absolute. The DuPont name was synonymous with American progress. A montage of the era tells the story. Towering corporate skyscrapers piercing the skyline, newsreels of World War II showcasing their immense contribution to the war effort, from parachutes to the plutonium for the Manhattan Project. Their reach extended into every corner of American life, a silent partner in the nation's journey. They were in the cars we drove, the clothes we wore, the homes we lived in. Through strategic alliances and government contracts, DuPont became an extension of the state itself, a corporate power intertwined with the very wars America fought. But all empires, no matter how powerful, are built by mortals. In 1889, the heart of the DuPont dynasty fell silent. Henry DuPont, the patriarch who had steered the company through its most explosive period of growth, passed away. With him died a singular vision, a relentless drive that had been the company's guiding force for decades. The candlelight flickered at his funeral, casting long shadows in the silent boardroom. An era had ended. The man who had turned his family's gunpowder business into an industrial behemoth was gone, leaving behind a sprawling empire and a question that hung heavy in the air. Who could possibly fill his shoes? The mantle of leadership passed to Eugene Du Pont. He inherited the empire, the name, and the immense responsibility that came with it. But he did not inherit the fire. Where Henry had been a visionary, Eugene was a caretaker. He sat at his father's desk, staring at ledgers and balance sheets, but the spark of innovation was gone. Under his cautious rule, the relentless expansion ground to a halt. The company that had once defined the cutting edge began to look backwards. The empire stagnated. Research and development slowed to a crawl, and soon the profits that had once seemed endless began to dwindle, threatening the very legacy he was meant to protect. By the turn of the 20th century, the cracks in the DuPont empire were impossible to ignore. In the once confident boardrooms, tense whispers replaced bold proclamations. Directors huddled in corners, their faces grim as they looked at falling stock charts. The company that had once been the engine of American industry was sputtering. The family's competitors were catching up, and in some cases, surpassing them. A crisis was looming. The whispers grew louder, coalescing into a single terrifying ultimatum: sell the company. And salvage what was left, or stand by and watch a century of dominance crumble into dust. The dynasty was at a crossroads. The DuPonts had built an empire from fire and chemistry, transforming the raw elements of the earth into unprecedented power and wealth. They had conquered markets, influenced governments, and changed the very way people lived. As the family gathered for a portrait, their faces a mask of stoic resolve, they were unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. They believed they had mastered the forces of nature and industry. But the greatest chemical reaction, the one that would test the bonds of family and threaten to tear their empire apart, was still to come. The stage was set for a battle over the soul of the company. The DuPont family, America's industrial dynasty, was forging the future from chemicals. They gave us nylon, Kevlar, Teflon, materials that promised to redefine modern life. These weren't just products. They were miracles of science, woven into the very fabric of our world, from the clothes on our backs to the technology that would take us to the moon. For a time, the name DuPont was synonymous with progress, innovation, and the relentless march of human ingenuity. Each new invention was a testament to their vision, a building block for a brighter, more convenient world. But in the shadows of these brilliant creations, a darker alchemy was at work, one that would come with an unimaginable price. Behind the scenes, in bubbling vats and smoking reactors, a different kind of miracle was being born. They were called PFOA and PFAS, compounds so resilient, so unbreakable, they were nicknamed forever chemicals. They were the secret ingredient that made pans non-stick and jackets waterproof. An invisible poison, seeping silently from the factories into the water, the soil, and eventually into us. These chemicals were designed to never break down, and that was their greatest strength and their most terrifying curse. For decades, as the profits soared, these toxins spread unchecked, an unseen legacy of contamination that would haunt generations to come. The shimmering rivers and lush landscapes around the DuPont plants held a deadly secret, one that was about to be exposed. For the communities living in the shadow of DuPont's empire, the American dream began to curdle into a nightmare. Rivers that once teemed with life ran slick with chemical rainbows. Livestock fell mysteriously ill, and a tide of sickness began to sweep through the towns. People who had placed their trust in the company, who had built their lives around it, started asking questions. For decades, DuPont had presented itself as a pillar of the community, a symbol of American prosperity. But behind the factory walls, a different story was unfolding, one of deliberate contamination, of buried reports, and of a devastating human cost that had been hidden from public view. The prosperity they promised was poisoning them from the inside out. The reckoning, when it came, was explosive. A wave of lawsuits, led by tenacious lawyers and brave whistleblowers, brought DuPont's secrets into the harsh light of the courtroom. Journalists and environmental activists pieced together a story of corporate deception that spanned decades. The empire built on scientific marvels was now facing a crisis of its own making, its once sterling reputation tarnished by accusations of negligence and greed. The scientists who had once been hailed as heroes were now seen as architects of an environmental catastrophe. The confrontation was not just about money, it was about accountability for the lives shattered and the environment scarred by their pursuit of profit. 2 centuries after its founding, the DuPont legacy is a story of profound contradiction. It is a tale of innovation that shaped the modern world, yet also a cautionary tale of power that corrupts and poisons. Today, as we look at the gleaming corporate towers and then to the scarred landscapes still struggling to heal, we see the dual nature of progress. The story of DuPont is more than the story of one family or one company. It is a warning about the hidden costs of our ambitions and the enduring responsibility we have to our planet and to each other. The name that once built modern America now serves as a reminder of how easily it can be broken. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world.